Hi, everybody. Welcome to another edition or episode of the Burn Desire Show. And I'd forgotten to do this, but normally I ask for the pronunciation of the person's name. And I'm going to just go with this Cynthia Ewers-Cobb?
Yeah,
Ewers-Cobb?
nearly. Ewers-Cobb, yeah.
Ewers-Cobb.
Yeah,
Ewers-Cobb.
yeah.
Okay, cool. And as I always say at the beginning of each kind of episode, and also, of course, to you in the little pre-call, is the Steve Jobs quote that you can't connect dots going forwards, only backwards. And so I think it's quite apparent and quite for yourself if we do start, which I always like to, kind of your early upbringing and school and things like that, given what you now do. It'd be interesting to hear what your kind of schooling was like and if you enjoyed it. And because I always think that schooling, like early schooling, is probably the first time that you're not with your parents, right? So
Yeah,
you've got a bit of expressionism where you can be a bit of a naughty kid, or you can be the one that's like does all the homework before everybody else, or
yeah.
you can show a bit of personality, right? So it's kind of a good place to start, I always think.
Yeah, that's such a good question. So I grew up in Cambridge. So when I tell people that, they're like, oh, Cambridge, I don't know. And my schooling was weird. I think when I look back on it, I actually didn't enjoy school a lot. But at the time I thought that I did, if that makes sense.
Right.
Um,
That's interesting.
So yeah, there's a lot of reasons for that. So the first is that my mum made the decision to send me and my sisters to a school that was predominantly white, and being literally a handful of black children and a
Okay.
couple of children of color, it was actually quite difficult, I think, to really have an identity and
Yeah.
to not feel ethnically isolated, and that's how I felt.
Right.
I didn't realize it at the time, but that looking back on it, that is how I
I
felt.
see.
So it was quite difficult for me to kind of feel like I could really be myself because I didn't necessarily have role models of what it was like to kind of be black. Yeah, within the kind of school system. And then
Right.
the other thing was I was during this kind of my schooling, I found reading and writing really difficult.
Right.
Um, and I think because of the time that I was in school, which was the 90s pretty much, like the 90s,
Yeah.
um, I didn't get the kind of help that I needed. And it was only really until I was at university that I kind of pushed to get a diagnosis of dyslexia and dyspraxia.
Okay.
So pretty much all through my schooling, I really wanted to learn. I loved learning so much, and I wanted to kind of absorb all the information in school, but I just could not concentrate. I couldn't get the information in. So I kind of think about it being like in another country where you're like you want to learn the language, you want to interact with people, but you don't understand what they're saying or what's kind of going on, or you're not kind of like getting all the cues that you need to
Mm.
learn. So I found that quite hard. But what I was good at in school was I was really good at sports. I was really good at drama and all of the kind of expressive art stuff. So I kind of used that as an outlet to kind of express myself. And I did really
Yes.
enjoy that, especially in secondary school, because you had a really good secondary school and had a very good, strong dance department and kind of performing arts department. So I kind of threw all my energy into that, even though I was always very interested in psychology and actually economics and all that kind of stuff. But I was kind of discouraged from doing that because that wasn't, I wasn't on their in their eyes sort of the academic type person. Um, and yeah, so I guess how school shaped me was it made me very resilient, I think, and it made me very driven because I knew that I was really interested in learning and I always wanted to kind of um, push myself. And the dance and the performing arts part of it really pushed me to kind of believe in, because they always used to say, you have to believe in yourself. And if you don't believe in yourself, no one else is going to believe in you. And at the
Yes.
time I was like, "Oh, okay." But it really did stick with me. Um, and to this day, it's stuck with me. And it's definitely one of my values that I have. Um, so yeah, it really it pushed me to kind of really not take, if people kind of put you down or try and tell you that you're not good enough, to really just challenge that and go and really push yourself to your limits, but also to seek help when you need it. And yeah, to just kind of I suppose that's where I got my entrepreneurial spirit as well, I guess, is just to kind of not be from the kind of performing arts, and also the kind of knockbacks and stuff, I guess, that I had in school with the not being able to kind of maybe do the subjects that I wanted. But then I'd be in a different place.
So what subjects did you want to do but found challenging? Um,
I really wanted to do psychology and economics. That was like, I was really interested in those things, but I was told like no, which at the time I didn't realize that was bad. And then also there were just things like, I know that I could have done a lot better in my GCSEs and A levels had I had the help that I needed at the time. But I just a lot, there were just really bad attitudes at the time. They're just like,
it's
oh, well, you don't.
Yeah, it. I always say to people, particularly people from the States,
Mm,
because their schooling system doesn't pigeonhole you anywhere near as quickly as ours does. And like we're like
no,
at age 14, 13, like moving towards GCSE choices that then affect what you could do at A level, which affect university, which potentially affect future employment. You're like,
absolutely.
what?
It's
You have no
crazy.
idea at that age.
Yeah, it's crazy. And the thing I like about the US system is that I mean, don't get me wrong, there are still issues with this education system, but what I do like about the university system is firstly you get 4 years in university, and you also get to major and minor in things. So
Exactly.
you can kind of work on two subjects that you're interested in, and then you decide after that what you want to do, which I think
Very
is
much
great.
so.
I really like the French system as well, the baccalaureate, which I did. They had that in my sixth form college in my secondary school, where you have a range of subjects that you work on. So it's not just you pick three things and you go,
Right.
and then that's it. You still have to do math, science, and English, and then I think you have like three other subjects that you work on at the same time. So it
Yeah.
just gives you so much more of a rounded approach to life, right? Before you go to university, you've got way more choices, like when you get to
Yes.
university, of what you can go for. And I think, I know there's this thing about maths and stuff, but I do think keeping up some level of maths. I'm not saying like you have to do like deep
Yes.
trigonometry and stuff, but even things
Yes.
like basic things like right, how does a credit card work? How does a mortgage work? All these kind of
Yes.
things. There's still maths, right, and
Yes.
finance and stuff like that. So you can tailor maths to that for young people
Yes.
as they get into
Yes.
university, so they've got some level of understanding of what all of that is.
Yes. No,
Um, no, go ahead.
I think that makes sense. I was saying, sorry. You know,
Yeah. So I mean, yeah. So I like that kind of system. I think it gives people a bit more, young people a bit more um opportunity. I think because that's the problem is I think like you said, people kind of get to university and they don't know what to do. They just pick any old thing, and
yes.
then at the end of university they're like, oh no, I don't know what I've done.
Talking of university, you went and studied popular and contemporary music. What does that actually entail for people that don't understand what that actually is?
Well, yeah. So I don't even know what it was. Oh gosh. So yeah, I finished A levels with all of my kind of thing of I wanted to do performing arts and kind of get into like the music industry, and that was the thing that I wanted to do. So I ended up doing music business at a school called the Academy of Contemporary Music in Guildford, which was brilliant. But then by the end of the course, I was like, I don't think I want to do this. I still wanted to do the psychology stuff, because whilst I was doing that degree, I was working part time with a young man actually doing something called like an area of like psychology. So I was helping him like because he had autism. And I really enjoyed that. And I kind of realized at the end that was what I wanted to kind of shift towards.
So how did you
Um,
get involved with that? Sorry, I don't know if you just mentioned.
it was a part-time job. So I just saw
Ah,
an ad in the bookshop and I needed the work. And they said, oh, okay, we'll show you what to do. It's just these little programs that you have to do with him. And we're going to
right.
help teach these skills because he doesn't have these skills because he's got autism. And I thought, oh, okay, autism, okay. And I did it and I really enjoyed it. Yeah, it was just genuinely so fulfilling. And I could literally see, everything that everybody was kind of teaching him was making a difference and really improving his life.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was such a nice feel, like really genuinely rewarding. And it did make me think about obviously my schooling and the difficulties that I had and the support that I didn't get. So I kind of really that really connected with me, and that's why I ended up kind of qualifying into that area. Um, so after I did after I was at ACM, I worked in as a ABA tutor for like 5 years. And then I ended up doing a master's at South Wales University of South Wales, in applied behaviour analysis, because I wanted to specialise in helping people with autism.
So what is applied behavior analysis? What sort of thing is that?
It's an area of applied psychology, and it is essentially just it's about understanding behavior or learning and behavior, and breaking down. So every kind of action we do as humans can be quantified and analysed essentially. So and we would say it's a behavior that can be taught to increase or decrease. And that's like a very crass way of looking at it, because obviously humans are very complex. But what science, I guess, has found is with children with autism in particular, it's kind of come from America. So I don't know if you've heard of like B.F. Skinner.
No,
No, okay. So anyway, so he was very kind of big in psychology in the 50s, and a lot of what he did was kind of outdated and not that amazing.
right.
But what he kind of conceptualized was that you could teach anyone to do anything more or less, which is kind of quite dodgy as well. So because there's obviously a lot of ethical problems with that. But specifically with children with autism, what professionals or psychologists found is that they were kind of missing a lot of skills. And so what behavior analysis does is to help teach those skills in a very kind of child-centered, ethical way. So for instance, with this boy that I was working with, he found it really difficult to play. He found it really difficult to get himself dressed in the morning, and a lot of basic skills. So we used to just break down those skills and teach him so that he could then do those things for himself. And yeah, so that's kind of what I did with him. But then I kind of worked in like lots of different settings doing the same thing, which was good. Yeah, go on.
How do they with something like autism, which is obviously becoming a bit more understood than it used to be?
Yeah, definitely.
Like, what do they do people who study this like understand what the difference is like in the mental capacity? And so, for example, why you often find, and I am generalizing, autistic children are particularly very good at certain things, and of course, other things may be a bit lacking. Is there any like, do we have any idea why, or we just know that it is a thing?
I mean, not all children or young people that are diagnosed with autism have that kind of savant trait
Okay.
that you're talking about. That's usually something that people kind of say, but it's not necessarily
Yeah, I
true.
was
So
gonna
that
say it probably is true. Probably.
yeah, so it's like if you think about like Rain Man or something like that, where he's kind of the character's like really good at maths, but then not so good at anything else. That's exceptionally
Yes.
rare.
Yes.
Yeah, so most people or individuals who are diagnosed with autism will tend to have a range of difficulties, usually within social skills and
Right.
communication, what we call like attention and listening skills. And then that can manifest by having like changing behavior, or having difficulties with sensory. So it's always described as a spectrum, because everybody with autism can present in different ways.
Right.
It's just that you kind of look at certain aspects of their like social skills or communication in order to make the diagnosis. So I do quite a lot of diagnosis now of autism within the team. And it's been really interesting actually for me to have that come from the other way around. I've always worked with children and young people with autism and helped to teach those skills, but to actually do the diagnosis is very interesting. Yeah, it's I guess another thing that I've done that I've really enjoyed actually.
And where are we now with kind of helping people with those kind of who are diagnosed with autism, and like where would you like to see, like what sort of improvements would you like to see in like the education system, or just generally like people's acceptance of it? Or
That's a good question. Definitely acceptance. I think it's got better. People are definitely more aware of what autism is, and they're definitely more aware of the challenges that people with autism have. And you get a lot of parents and individuals now who are able to speak out and kind of share their experiences. I think the education system for autism is a lot better in some ways than it used to be. I mean, it used to be that, a lot of schools just wouldn't, accept people with autism, or they'd say that they were naughty, or, kind of give them all these labels without really understanding that actually they have this condition where, they find it difficult to kind of manage in certain settings. They just need a little bit of extra help. Um, so I think that attitudes have got better, but I think we've definitely got a long way to go. And in terms of the therapy and intervention, I think also they've got a long way to go. So, obviously my background is ABA, and then I also trained in speech and language therapy. And I do think,
What's
ABA,
ABN? Sorry, what's
so
ABN?
applied behavior analysis, what I was talking
That's what
about
it
before, the
stands for.
areas. So yeah,
Yeah.
so I think obviously I can see that it makes a big difference for a lot of children, but the ABA professional community is not, I think, where it could be.
Okay.
Sorry guys, ABA said that. But there are a lot of really bad companies out there that are providing really poor services. There's a lot of people that are doing very old, outdated
Right.
forms of therapy, and there's a lot of disgruntled people with autism, parents, quite rightly, who is saying that ABA is not very good. And so I think as a profession we have to get a lot better at listening to those people, listening to their concerns, and also spreading the news and talking about all the good things that the ABA community are doing, because I think there's a lot of good things that they're doing, but they're not very good at promoting themselves, to be totally honest. So I'd like to see within the ABA community that the provision get a lot better, and be more integrated within the education system and the healthcare system. It's starting now, because there's a lot of my colleagues who are working in the NHS and different areas of the health and social care sector, but it needs to go a bit further. And then there's still a lot of really wacky therapies that are just like, oh man, like this just should not, there's a lot of wacky stuff out there. And I think I don't want to see parents who are really quite vulnerable do things because they think, oh, if I do this particular thing, I'll give my child this thing, they're going to talk, or because they've been told this stuff.
Okay.
There's a lot of snake oil type stuff out there
Yes.
still, which is really surprising. And some stuff that kind of turns up, for a couple of years, and everyone does it, and then it kind of disappears, and then it rebrands and then comes up again as the same thing. It's crazy, like really crazy.
The element of this kind of the old way people describe it as like there's a naughty child or what have you.
Yeah.
Like, is that like a almost like an airing of a frustration from the child? Is that what it like turns out that behavior becomes that because they're struggling and they don't understand why? Is that kind of what it is? Like, is
Yeah,
that
absolutely. I mean, we all behave in, when we're in an environment and things are happening, we're just reacting to what's happening within the environment, right? So for somebody with autism, or any kind of difficulty, if they are not able to express themselves or make their needs known in a kind of what we call like a typical way by
okay?
communicating, then they're going to use other methods in order to kind of get themselves heard,
I
essentially. So
see.
that's what's happening. So it's not like right or wrong. It's just about trying to help them to see that there's other ways of communicating their needs. And that's what ABA is supposed to be about. But other interventions as well, like speech and language, occupational therapy, all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, talking of speech and language, you mentioned I think on the website, is it where you work or own or something, that you talk about speech and behavior being linked and communication being like a key marker of that. Can you talk a bit more about that?
Yeah, so I think just from my experience, like when I've worked with people, if they're having difficulties with their communication, usually it kind of shows up with what we'd call like challenging or kind of difficult behavior, or difficult behavior. And what I find is usually if we put in some kind of intervention to help them to communicate what they want in a way that is the best for them, whether that's talking or using pictures or signing, the challenging behavior usually decreases. So it's just talking about that there's always a link or an interconnectivity between behavior and the way in which we communicate. And I guess that links to the kind of example that I gave before about us kind of being in an environment when we behave, in accordance with the environment that we're in.
And you now kind of as well as it's I presume as well as or alongside of your professional life, you also involved with sustainable living and have a blog to that effect. How did that kind of come out? I had a little reading on it. It seems that you were looking for information, couldn't find a place that collated it in one place, and I presume that's what led you to go, oh, here's some stuff I found type thing.
Yeah, so there's not a lot of information about sustainable living ideas for families. So there's a lot of sustainable blogs, but it's usually like like sustainable living news, like, oh, this particular thing or this policies come through, or kind of wonky stuff. And then there's like actual sustainable brands that will kind of have their own, blogs with on their websites about the products that they're selling, or just sustainable type stuff. And then you'll have a few, but not that many UK based kind of sustainability blogs that are just kind of doing like product reviews, like green living ideas and stuff that are kind of suitable for families. I just couldn't find that many. So I thought, well, I'm really into that, and it kind of I wanted a creative outlet to do something kind of a little bit different from the stuff that I'm doing, with children with autism or young people with
Mm.
autism. So I got into the kind of sustainability blogging through that. And I've really enjoyed it so far, because I've learned so much. I was like, I don't know anything. I've still got so much to learn. But I've really, really enjoyed kind of just really thinking about how me and my family live, and what we can be doing each day to kind of just try to be a little bit more sustainable. It's not about trying to, sell our house and live in a tent or anything like that. It's just about thinking about, okay, are the things that I buy, is there anything that I could swap, so that it's a little bit more sustainable, or do I need to buy this thing, or do you know what I mean? It's just things like that, and trying to um, think about how I'm going to teach my daughter as well, like how to be as sustainable as possible, because obviously what she's going to inherit in terms of like future and things like that. I want her to kind of always have that in the back of her mind, and also see us, me and her dad living as sustainably as possible, as good role models.
Is
So
that is
yeah.
that what led you down that path? Look, with your child looking and going, do you want to leave a good example, or like you just saw more people talking about it and thought, actually, that's something that I think is valuable to get involved with?
It's a bit of both. Um, yeah, it's a little bit of both. I mean, like I said, I've always been really interested in it. I just never really put it down on paper. So I wanted to kind of, when I was pregnant with her and I was getting all of the kind of baby things together, I was thinking about, oh, okay, actually, like you don't think about it, like baby wipes, they're not, so a lot of them are not biodegradable. They're full of plastic, and when you've got a new baby, you're sort of not thinking about that. But actually, I was like, actually, no, this isn't very sustainable. Are there any options out there? So it's just stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah. And just different parts of my life where I just thought, okay, well, is there a sustainable option for this? Oh, okay, let me review it and see, So yeah, yeah, blogging is interesting. It's really good fun. Obviously, you have to be very committed and being very consistent. But it's a very new thing to me to have to kind of apply, to kind of be creative in a kind of different way. So it's been really good fun so far, and I'm looking
It's
forward to
quite
keep going.
interesting because you started by saying that you struggled learning and with dyslexia and dyspraxia that was understood later on, and now you're teaching people to communicate and also blogging, which is the two things you would not expect someone with that kind of background to have to be doing, so I should say.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, honestly, the teaching people to communicate and the speech and language has literally just come, I think, because I don't want anyone to ever have to struggle in the
Mhm.
way that I did.
That makes
And I
sense.
want them to know like that there's help out there. And also there's people that are like them, who have who are neurodiverse and understand, but also you can get a, decent job, and you can have a good career, and you don't have to like fret that you're not good enough and all that kind of stuff. So I'm sure that it's come from that. And I think the blogging is just more the creative side, So kind of,
Yes.
yeah, it's kind of that, I think.
So what kind of somewhat there are people I know out there that they maybe want to do that kind of thing, but like how do you even like start, or what sort of things do you start looking for, or yeah, what like how do you kind of if someone goes, oh, let's yeah, it sounds like a good idea. Like how do I start in a way that's not diving straight in and changing everything, but like
What, a blog, you mean? Or
well, but I suppose both. Yeah, first on the actual sustainable side of thing, someone says, I want to. I'm a bit more conscious of what I'm. Is it making choices like you were saying about swapping what you're buying? Is it that kind of thing, or activities that you're doing, or like how do you look at it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing I'd say is like the fact that you're thinking about it, and it sounds really silly, but the fact that you're thinking about it and you want to make an effort is the first step, because a lot of people don't think about it and they sort of, they're just, that's not the top of the list right now for various reasons, and that's fine.
Mm.
So the fact that you're thinking about it is really good. And then I would say, yeah, the first thing to do is to do like an audit, essentially, and have a look at everything that you're kind of buying and consuming, and have a look and see what areas you can change to, or one area that you can change to something that's a little bit more sustainable. So for us, the first thing that we looked at was washing powder, washing detergent. So we
Yeah.
swapped that out with an eco egg, I think it's called, the little eco egg, which I thought would be absolutely rubbish. I can't lie. I was just like, no, let's give it a go. I'm sure it was, and it works. It's fine. So, and then yeah, and then just go gradually that way. I mean, I think if you try to sort of say I'm going to swap everything, it's you're just going to not do a great job and fail and think, oh, this doesn't work. But also you have to swap things that make sense for you and your family. So there's no point, like with the whole nappy thing, we tried reusable nappies that you wash. Um and I was definitely up for it, but we found that our daughters were just getting really bad nappy rash. So for us that just didn't work. But we were able to use the reusable wipes. So do you know what I mean? So just little things like
Right.
that, rather than trying to go for everything. And don't feel bad if you try something and it doesn't work. That's okay. You can have a look and try and swap to something else. Um, but if people want to know, I do have a sustainability quiz that you can just take, and you just answer like 10 questions, and it will just give you some ideas of where you can make first swaps. So yeah.
That makes sense. And you did allude to as well, which is probably quite interesting, people that are interested in blogging, that kind of thing. Like, how did you start? Like, where is it now? Again, what is your kind of ambition with that?
Yeah, blogging is like I said, very interesting. I think that from what I'm reading and learning, like it's changed a lot in the last couple of years. And so it seems like it's quite rightly, I guess, got a little bit harder. Um, I think, yeah, if you want to get started, I think just make sure that you pick a niche that is popular enough to get you traffic. So and obviously something that you have to be kind of interested in it as well, because you're going to have to write a lot about it. There's no point picking something that you're not interested in, because you just won't produce like quality articles. Um, and then just try and do as much research as you can, about the topic that you're interested in, the kind of topic areas. You need to you have to pick where you're going to host the blog. So I wouldn't personally use like Wix or Squarespace or anything like that. Try and host it on WordPress or through Hostinger, which is the hosting platform I use. Um, you need to pick a schedule of how many days a week you're going to write the articles for. So I kind of picked 2 a week, because I knew that any less than that would be difficult to kind of get any traction. But I wasn't quite ready to do more than that. And then now I'm stepping up to doing 4 articles a week, because I've kind of got into the flow where I can batch write and then kind of schedule them out. Um, and then also just know that the first articles that you're going to write, probably the first 20, are not going to be that great. So you're going to have to go back over them again. And then also don't be afraid to get help from, there's a lot of online applications that will help you to do like keyword research, that will help you to kind of structure your paragraphs, intros, conclusions, stuff. So don't be afraid to kind of look at those types of tools to help you write, because it does make the work process a lot quicker. And also just know that SEO is obviously really important, and things like backlinks are incredibly important, which is what I'm working on at the moment. So I'm kind of looking at like the best ways to kind of get backlinks, and to kind of reach out to other blogs to do some guest posts, or do podcasts if they do them, or to ask to try and do like sponsored stuff. So I think like an eco antique jewelry shop got in contact with me recently, and they want me to do like a feature on their thing. So it's just stuff like that, trying to
Makes
reach
sense.
out to businesses or services within your niche, and to try and collaborate, as much as possible. So it's just stuff like that. You do have to kind of hustle, and don't be afraid of knockbacks, because it might take a while. If your kind of view is that you want this blog to kind of be money making in a business, then you kind of have to be in that mindset. But if you're like, I just want the blog to kind of just do my own thing, then that's also okay. But just know that it might take some time for it to kind of generate any income. That's what you want.
So how long did it take you to get any traffic, or how did the first traffic come? Was it literally sending it to friends going, hey, look at this, what do you think?
Yeah, it's a little bit of that. I mean, social media is weird at the moment. A lot of the search engines are kind of don't really work other than Pinterest. I don't really post things on Facebook or Twitter. I mean, Twitter is like, I don't know what your experience with Twitter is, but it's just like not amazing.
Yeah.
So Pinterest was the one for me that seemed to have some kind of traction. So I do post everything on Pinterest. The best thing, honestly, is just getting your SEO, as good as possible. And I also use a PR company, just so if journalists say, oh, I'm looking for some quotes on, reusable nappies, I might say, okay, these are the nappies that we use. We found them really useful. And then if they like that quote, they'll use it. So I was recently featured in the Daily Mirror, a Daily
Okay.
Mirror article, yeah, where they linked back to my website. So stuff like that. It's just,
Nice.
that's just a good way of
And,
kind
and
of.
and what for you, what is the kind of thought process to where you want it to go? What's the concept with it?
Yeah, good idea. I mean, what I'd love, I want it to continue to grow. I want it to be a business, yeah, that I could um run, full time. So to be a full time blogger. So I would like to be able to offer zero waste starter packs for families that. So let's say you've got a family that want to be more eco-friendly in the kitchen, they could go onto my website and buy like a zero waste starter pack that would give them all of the kind of little samples of like reusable sponges, or uh, plant-based washing up liquid or something like that. So all these little things. So I'd like to be able to have that on the website that people can buy. And then also I'd like to get more into the campaigning side of things. So stuff like if people if there's do like a campaign around like recycling in this country is really appalling. Actually, I didn't realize how bad it was until I started researching. So stuff like that's really important. So I'd love to
When
be
you
able to
say
kind
bad,
of.
is it just like the way it's being done, or
Yeah,
process and things?
yeah. So we only recycle like 45% of the stuff that is actually the stuff that you put in your bin. Only 45% of it is actually recycled. A lot
Right.
of it's shipped off to countries like Latvia, and yeah, it's really like really really bad. So stuff like that. I mean, glass. Apparently, like the glass lobby is really strong in this country, so they like put in these like laws that a lot of the glass jars and bottles that you throw away don't actually get properly recycled and reused. They're kind of just sort of chucked away in like landfill or shipped off elsewhere, and they're not then reused and kind of melted down and reused for like
Why is
products
that
and stuff.
being done? Why is that?
Because the glass lobby in this
Oh,
country,
so because they want more
yeah,
people to buy more glass.
yeah,
That
which
makes
is
sense.
terrible, right? So, and you just think about like
Absolutely.
how unsustainable that is. It's just so bad, and there's no need for it. um and how expensive that puts a massive expense actually on us when we're buying things. That's why, not the only reason, but a lot of the reason why things get more and more expensive is because obviously if they're making it from scratch and taking those resources from the
So,
ground,
yeah.
yeah, there's so much um waste just because people are kind of determined to like make money, if you know what I mean. So just,
Yes.
yeah, the campaigning side would be really good, as well as selling like zero waste products, and as well as just helping people and giving as much information to families as possible so that they're able to kind of be as, eco-friendly as possible.
Is this something that you want to do alongside your kind of speech and behavioral things and whatnot? Is that the idea?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to, yeah. The way that we've got the company running at the moment, because it's myself and two other people, we're kind of nearly at the position where we will be able to step back completely and just be in more of a director role, where we kind of got people kind of being able to run the company, and we're just um, helping with the kind of vision and making sure that the kind of overall company is taking over. Um, and so then I'd like at that point to be able to work on the blog full time, which means that I can have more time with my family. And
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, I've loved being a speech and language therapist and a behavior analyst, but it's been like so much of my life for so long. I'd love to be able to kind of step back a little bit from it and be more kind of offering consultancy or advisory, if you know what I mean.
That makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, because I love it, but it is so all consuming, and you really have to put everything into supporting these people, young people, because that's what they need, absolutely. But yeah, sometimes I feel like for me, I just almost just take a step back a little bit and do something else, just on my brain as well. Just
Get
like to
it.
have a bit of a new challenge. So yeah.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And what would you say to a parent listening to this, or somebody that's a friend of somebody, perhaps, probably more likely a parent
Mhm.
that has a child that is struggling, or they just think maybe there could be something that could help them, like something that
Mhm.
you're referring to, like what's the first kind of step they should take?
I'd say to record evidence of what they've noticed. So it could be like a diary of the times and dates they've noticed that the child is kind of behaving in a way, or saying or not saying or doing things that they've kind of noticed. They think when they compare the child to, say, like their siblings or other
Mm.
friends and family, they think it's different. Um, and there's a lot of online like short quizzes and things to see if the child has got autism. They can go on and do those. Um, and then just make an appointment when you can, and go and see a GP and just really air those concerns and just say, look, I've done a diary. I have logged all of the things that I've noticed that aren't right. Um, I'd like to get some help, and then they can start the process for them. In terms of getting to speech and language therapy or going down the route of diagnosis, if that's what they need.
And I guess it's a delicate topic, but I think it's very important. But how do we make sure that like there's biases aren't at play that push people down a road where actually, for whatever reason, it wasn't a
Mm,
diagnosis required. It was more, difficult life events were happening, or maybe the where the parents were behaving to
mhm.
each other, for example. Like, how do we
Mhm.
make sure those sort of things are like considered, I suppose, and not just,
Yeah,
okay, actually, yeah, you tick some boxes, done a quiz, there you go, label.
yeah. Um, yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, look, when you go down the diagnosis route, you always rule out things like that, and that's why you have what they call like a multidisciplinary diagnosis. So it's lots of different professionals that will see that person,
Right.
so that they can kind of make a decision together as a team. Um, so things like that are always taken into account. Is the young child or young person, have they been seen by social services, or do they come from a background perhaps that is being quite challenging? Because all those things will be taken into account to see whether actually the presentation is, it looks like autism, but actually it isn't because of these factors. So that will be taken into account when they start the diagnosis route. It doesn't mean that they'll get a diagnosis. It might be that they say that there isn't autism present, but they do need to be seen by a professional because of these other problems that we've noticed. Um, so yeah, that has happened to me before, where a child, they thought that the child had autism, but actually it was more to do with the home life being quite difficult.
That must be
Um,
an interesting conversation to have.
it was interesting because I think the parents were convinced, but when we it wasn't me that gave the news, it was a different professional, but I was in the meeting when they said, look, actually we need to kind of really look at we need to give you some support on things like that going on in the home. A lot of the challenges that the child and the behavior that the child was exhibiting was very similar to autism, like very challenging behavior, difficulties with communicating. um so the intervention that the team ended up providing was very similar to what you would do with children with autism. It's just that the diagnosis wasn't needed. Um, yeah.
That makes sense.
Mm.
So you've got two very different, but both both trying to help other people, I suppose, with the sustainability hat and
Hmm.
the kind of helping people that are challenged with, autism, etc. That's two very. I think it's just interesting because, as I said at the beginning of every episode, connecting dots that um you would never, I'm sure, 10 years ago have realized or thought that you might be doing one, blogging, and two, probably in sustainability, right?
No, I didn't know. No way. I mean, I always try to do creative things like alongside this job, just so that my brain is active.
Yes.
Um, so I did start, started learning French because that was another thing. I don't know what about French for you in school, but I thought French was awful in my school.
I
Like my
loved.
teacher was,
I was very good at French, but the only
oh,
reason I was good at French is because of the teacher was very attractive, and that was about it. As soon as that teacher was no longer there, the A
you were not
levels, my
interested.
grades went terribly wrong.
Oh no, that was brilliant.
Maybe she
No,
was a
I had.
great teacher. I don't
Well,
know.
there you go.
Maybe
Well,
let's go with
it's
that.
probably a bit of both, but yeah, my teacher was not great at all, and I just couldn't get on with it at all. But
Yes.
I just yeah, just 5 years ago, I was just like, do you know what? I can't speak another language, and I'm really ashamed of that. And
Mm.
like the world, I think is it like I can't remember what the percentage is, but it's really high anyway. Most of the world is bilingual. It's only like UK
English.
and America
Yeah, yeah, basically.
and Australia that only speak like one language, which is
Somehow.
terrible. So yeah, so I thought, okay, let me try and learn French because I have a few friends that can also speak French. So I thought we can talk together, and I just absolutely loved it this time around, and I just picked it up so quickly, and I was like, oh my goodness, like I wonder what it would have been like if I'd actually taken French a bit
Mhm.
more seriously and
Mhm.
tried to push myself to do it. But yeah,
I think it's interesting because um at school a lot of things well two things. I think a lot of people like stop just think learning just stops at a certain time. Like, all right, I've
yeah,
got all my grades and stuff. In fact, I was thinking about this earlier today. I bought a funny enough, it's Jordan Belfort, Wolf of Wall Street, the guy
oh
from
yeah, 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 yeah,
and it's called straight. I can see over here. It's called straight line selling. Now I count myself as very good at what I do, thankfully,
mm-hmm.
and people back that up with reviews and whatnot. But you can always improve, right? And I think
Right,
if you have that mentality and you're always seeking for, like, I always look at it like even if I read one thing in that book and I
yeah,
don't agree with it,
yeah,
like that's good because I can,
yeah,
I like okay, I see where the person's coming from and why it's worked for them, and this is why it doesn't work for me and whatever. So I think the minute that it's that whole thing, isn't it? Like if you don't grow, you die. Like
yeah,
you just slowly decline if you're not challenging yourself. And I think it's admirable actually coming to you that you are clearly successful in what you've done with the behavioral science side of things. And then to go, all right, like let's like go again at something really completely different that's going to challenge me again versus just sitting back and just like doing whatever. I think people are doing that more and more, I think, which is a good thing, is going, I
yeah. I
don't have
think
to be defined by one thing that I did well for 10
exactly,
years or 20 years. Like I can reinvent myself and do something else. Like I think that's a good thing.
exactly. And I think there's a lot of skills that you can transfer into different things. So that's what I love. I think about this age of people like millennials and Gen Zers and that. I think yeah, they're not afraid to kind of just try something different and see how it goes. And I really like that attitude. Um, and speaking of that book, actually, I read what was that book called? Rich Dad Poor Dad. I
Yes,
read that because
that's it.
I heard so many people talking about it, and I was like, okay, let me read it.
Yes,
And there
yes,
was a lot in that I thought, okay, no, I don't agree with this at all.
yes,
But like you said, it did get me thinking, okay, why don't I agree with it? Like, what
yes,
is it that I don't like? But then there was
yes.
also a lot of stuff that he said that I think is absolutely spot on. Like, we don't have any financial kind of
Correct.
education in schools. It's really bad actually. And
Yep.
just even understanding like what is a liability and an asset and stuff. I was like, oh
Yes.
yeah, I never really thought about that actually. So there's parts of it that I thought, okay, really fantastic. And then other
Yes.
parts I thought, no, I don't agree with, but
Yeah, well,
that's
listen,
okay.
if everyone, I think it is a feature, unfortunately, on the other side of the society at the moment, where I call it groupthink, where
Mm,
everyone reads the same books and sees the same Netflix documentaries or the way
mm-hmm,
the algorithms work, or the same YouTube, or the same this, that, and the other. And instead of it being what I think people think sometimes, that things are
mm-hmm.
hyper personalized, I think a lot of the time you're actually like forced down the same lane.
Yeah.
So it's like everyone's just thinking the same, and that's really bad. And of course, the whole echo chamber piece
Mm-hmm,
where you're just seeing more and more of the same things because, of course, these apps are there to hijack your
mm-hmm,
attention. And if
mm-hmm.
your attention is you think cats are really cute, but like you're not seeing the other side of it, which is like
Yeah.
the couches up, like
Yeah.
you're going to see the cute stuff because
Yeah.
that's stuff that gets you the couch stuff, like you just straight off the app. So they're like, all right, we're not going to show them that again. We're just going
Yeah.
to show them the cute bit. And
Yeah.
obviously, a more important topics, that's a big problem. Uh,
Yeah.
Talking of technology, I think this is a good place to kind of leave the conversation, but I want to know your answer to this one.
Mm.
Um, you see now, literally just as we're talking this last week gone, I think it was, that Apple brought out their Vision Pro, their headset, and
Oh, okay.
they call it spatial computing.
Hmm.
So, like imagine like ski goggles is basically what it looks like. And you are then consumed into this virtual world. And the
Mm.
way, of course, like everything Apple do, they're not the first to do it, but they market it so well.
Yes.
And they show you the real life examples how it would be used. So,
Hmm.
calls like this would
Hmm.
be more kind of how can I put this? You would feel more involved in the
Yeah.
call because like the way it's put across, like you
Hmm.
could have your work where you'd have like one part of your vision, you're seeing your whole email and
Hmm.
a huge screen, and then in the middle you got like maybe YouTube playing, and on the
Hmm.
right side you could have like I don't know, like another application going on, and
Hmm.
it's really super interesting, and I can see a lot of benefits to it.
Hmm.
Interesting enough, from your point of view, and I'm sure there'll be great benefits as well to children with behavioral challenges and whatnot, and
Hmm.
sure. But do you not think going forwards, and I'm not trying to load the question, with
Mm.
this more and more of people working from home remotely, living virtually, is that going to cause more issues than it maybe solves potentially? Or do you see the benefit of technology like that?
Um, it's a weird question. It's not a weird question.
Yes.
It's weird because I think that look, as humans, we are designed to be, as much as people will try and say, oh, we're individual. No, we're designed to be a society. We're sort of designed to be together and to connect, you know.
Mm,
And
mm,
I think that sometimes technology is amazing in that, we've made leaps and strides in being able to like, heal ourselves, learn faster, learn more, um, there's amazing things with technology, but sometimes I wonder like what is the motive behind some of the things that are coming out. And
interesting.
virtual reality and all of that kind of stuff, I think yes, there will be a use for it, 100%. I mean, if you look at like Star Trek and stuff like that, they have like the holodeck where they have like
Yes.
mainly for entertainment, and I'm sure like learning and stuff like that. I'm sure that there'll be amazing like applications for it. Like I could
Yes.
imagine doing like a virtual university where you could go and attend lectures from any, just from your home, go to
True.
Harvard without having to fly there, right? That is a benefit, not only because you're able to attend those lectures, but also for the environment. You're having to fly on a plane and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
So
Makes
there's
sense.
definitely like utility and stuff like that. But then also some of these companies like Apple and Google, and they have a financial motive behind everything. And I suppose I have the worry that firstly, they're doing all this stuff on the face of it because they want you to attend to do these things. But what is the hidden motive? Are they like taking your data? Are they, is there something, is there something from you that you have to give them in return? But do you know what I mean? That
Mm-mm.
seems like okay for now, but later on down the line, it's going to end up being an issue. If they're going to be issues with things like people losing their jobs, their livelihoods, stuff like that. Um, and I guess for like the young people that I work with, yes, absolutely, there's utility in it. I can literally think of a person that I work with at the moment. I think would struggle to go to university, but something like that would be really useful because they'd be able to access lectures literally from the comfort of their own home. The
Right.
difficulty would be that they're not going to then interact with people in the
Mm.
way that you would with in a university, and that person already struggles with social connection. So
Interesting.
it's a kind of like a balancing act because I think technology is amazing in the right hands, right? So, and that's the problem. I find that some of the silicon bros, if you know what I mean, I don't always trust the motives for why they're doing stuff.
Yes.
I mean, if you look at like the iPod when it first came out, it was about listening to music, right? That was what they told you it was. It pretty much decimated the music industry when it came out because they weren't paying the artists properly. People were kind of ripping and taking music without paying
Yes.
for stuff. So and even things like Netflix, yes, I think on paper, absolutely, like it's a good idea to be able to have like TV series or films kind of all in one place. That is a good idea. But with that has come the decimation pretty much of the film industry and the TV industry in that they don't pay the artists properly. they're doing all this dodgy stuff about AI where they're trying to take screenshots of people's faces so that they can basically use Holler projector, you know. So do you know what I mean? So yes, technology is good, but in the wrong hands, maybe not. I don't know.
So I
yeah,
guess then the wider question is, and this is, I was reading something actually interesting about I don't know if you know of a company called Richer Sounds. Do you have
yeah,
one?
yeah. I know which sound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Julian Rich's he wrote a book called The Richer Way, which one of the wealthiest guys in the UK gave to me many years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I read it and then years ago, and I thought, oh, I'll just reread it and see. I don't normally do that, but I thought, why not?
Yeah.
And he talks about the fact of like he's talking about sustainability to a degree, and he talks about, of course, like commerciality of business.
Yeah.
And I think the challenge often is, as you say, like what's the purpose of the endeavor? Like,
Mm,
is the endeavor to make money? And if that's over everything, of course,
mm,
then does this sustainability or doing good for the planet in whatever way,
mm,
like go by the wayside? And I think some of the more commercial people are saying, well, we can't just keep doing all this good stuff for the planet if who's paying for it? So I think
mm,
this is kind of like, where do you get that? Where do you find that harmony? And is it just taxing people more? Probably not. That's not really
yeah. Yeah.
believe
Yeah.
people just find another country to dump stuff into that is
Mm,
that works for them. I mean, I just saw this crazy YouTube video, which like it exists, but like when someone puts it this way, you just can't believe it.
mm, mm.
And as to how Apple for like 20, 30 years escaped pretty much all taxes because they call it it's like it's called the double Irish sandwich with Dutch or something. And
Right.
basically they figured out.
Oh, they put all of their companies are in Ireland,
Yeah,
right?
they
Which got
moved
the
it, but
lowest
it was like
corporation
so
tax.
ridiculous that
Yeah.
like they were selling something like IP for a penny to the Bermuda. Bermuda
Mm.
sold to Ireland. Ireland sold it to the Netherlands. Netherlands sold it back to Ireland. And you're like, before you know it, you're like, what is like what?
Yeah. I mean, that stuff like that is just dodgy because
It's
that's
crazy.
sort of just blatant tax evasion, isn't it?
Yeah.
Where they're engaging in practices where they, and Amazon is similar as well. And I think the problem with things like that is that you can't, other companies who want to get into the technology space can't because they can't compete. Apple can,
Yes.
they can do all these things, run down their, you know, they corner them. I mean, it's like the Uber model, right? They corner the market. They have the lowest prices possible, and then when they've crushed out all the competition, they just raise the prices. So apparently, like Ring doorbell has like there's like a thing now. People are canceling their Ring doorbell um things because they've just like literally doubled their prices because they've crushed the kind of
Yeah,
doorbell
there's no one
market.
else. You've now got a
Yeah,
doorbell. Like
yeah.
it's now £15 a month fee 7
It's
to
50. So
is it
it
50?
started out at 15, I think. Then it went to 20 and then 25.
It's
And then they're
fifty
like, yeah,
pounds a
now it's
month, is
50.
it?
50, 50, which is
Jeez.
crazy. But it's like £50 for a doorbell. It's just like,
Yeah,
it's insane.
well, it's one of those things. Like I was just looking even in my business the other day, and like the amount of subscriptions of £10,
Yeah,
£20 here and
yeah.
there
And
that you just stack up. But I guess back to my final question here is, um, what's like how do you almost promote good actors and reduce bad actors as much as possible, but at the same time allow companies to make a profit because that is the big problem, isn't it? Sometimes
yeah.
the agenda of the environmentalists and the agenda of the people looking to do good is like
Mm,
so combative that it's
mm,
not there's actually no collaboration. It's like, no, this company's terrible, this is this, boycott that. It's like, I don't think ever being like that in any way really leads to much good. Like, you
mm,
know what I mean? And even if it does, like it's under duress and like
mm.
it's just like behind the door things. Like, how do you create a environment, want a better word, where business is in and the interests of the wider people are kind of shared? It's a difficult question. I'm not
No,
suggesting.
I think that it's about when you're trying to have a conversation about sustainability, but also about making sure that the economy is healthy, like business is contributing to the economy and it's healthy. It's about
Yeah.
getting as many voices around the table as possible. So you don't want to have the extreme ends of like, the hardcore businesses that basically don't care. They just want to make as much profit as possible.
Yes.
And then at the other end, you just have the hardcore environmentalists who are
Right.
like, just
Right.
like, rah! You want to have those people in between at the tables. And usually it's the people in between who are like, do you know what? I can't bother it's obviously with own mind. You know what I mean? So you want
That's
to get
true.
those people into
That's
the table
interesting.
as well. Yeah, because they're the ones that are going to say, look, actually, I do care about the environment. A lot of people in this country, most people in this country actually care about the environment, and they're trying to do their bit. I think the difficulty is that a lot of the time they don't know what to do,
Mm,
or they don't know. They think, oh, well, I'm doing stuff. Genuinely, I'm not sure if it's enough, but I don't know where to look, or I don't know what to do. And I just see these companies doing their own thing, and it just feels like, oh, helpless. Or I see these environmentalists doing these crazy things. Like,
mm.
and not all environmentalists do that as well. That's the thing. They get tarred, I think, with the brush
Yes.
of the very extreme ones. Um, yeah, so I think it's about getting everyone around the table to try and have a conversation and say to companies, yeah, absolutely, you should make a profit. Like, you know, I run a company, I know you have to make a profit for it to
Yeah.
function, right? But it should not be at the expense of the planet. There are things that you can do
Mm,
to make sure that you're being more sustainable, make sure that you're treating your staff properly, because that also has an environmental impact, and that you're offering products that are not going to harm the planet. I think that that is very reasonable. Um, and to be honest with you, I think if a lot of companies did that, a lot of the extreme environmentalists, they probably would back off a little bit, you know. Um, but it's about trying to get those people in the middle to have that conversation and add to the, you know, policies or whatever it is, you know, going forward to help shape the conversation. And I think we're getting like, I know there's a lot of craziness in the news about the Tories and stuff, but I think we are getting better at it, and people are more aware and more conscious, quite rightly. Because I mean, I don't know about you, like this winter, I was like, it feels a bit warm. I'm not going to lie, it feels a bit warmer than like I remember. You know, it doesn't. Something's not quite. It doesn't feel quite right. So I think people are sort of beginning to think about it. It's just about knowing what to do next, you know, and what they can do. That is genuinely going to make a difference. So yeah,
I think that's a good way to round off what's been an interesting conversation for sure.
yeah. Thank you so much. That's so much
Oh,
fun.
thank you. Thanks for your time. And yeah, I'll pop in some links to your blog, and I'm sure people will be able to reach out to you if they didn't do your sustainable quiz you mentioned, and any questions or anything like that where you can help them.
Awesome.
Thanks so much.
All right. Take care.